Have you ever listened to a recording of yourself talking and thought, "Oh my gosh, I sound like an entirely different person"? Maybe it sounded like someone else was speaking through your voice box, or maybe it sounded like you were underwater. Today we're going to look at why this happens, and if you stay till the end, I'll share some tips on how you can make your voice sound better on recordings. So what makes our voices sound different when we hear them back is that we're hearing them for the first time. When we speak, we produce sounds with our vocal cords, and these vibrations travel through our bones and into our ears. This gives us a physical sensation of our own voice as we speak. But when we listen to a recording, we're hearing our voice through a completely different pathway. The sound waves have to travel through the air to the microphone. Then they're converted into an electrical signal. Then they're stored on a hard drive. Then they're played back through speakers or headphones into our ears. So instead of vibrating directly through our bones, the sound waves are now traveling through the air twice, once when they were originally produced, and again when they are heard through the speaker. When sound travels through a medium like air, it behaves like a wave. It has peaks and valleys. The distance between each peak is called the wavelength. The length of the sound waves produced by our voices range from about 60 feet for the lowest notes to about 4 inches for the highest notes. That's because the size of our vocal folds determine the range of our voices. The larger the folds, the longer the wavelength and the lower the voice. The smaller the folds, the shorter the wavelength and the higher the voice. Now, since the wavelengths of our voices take up so much space, they interact with their surroundings. Our walls, furniture, clothing, and even our bodies absorb, reflect, and refract sound waves. All these interactions change the original sound of our voices. Let's look more closely at what happens to our voices when they interact with these objects. When sound waves bounce off an object, we call this reverberation, or in a more technical term, specular reflection. Now, when sound waves hit a hard, flat surface like a wall, they reflect in one predictable direction. But when they hit a softer surface like a rug or a person's chest, they reflect in many different directions. This is called diffuse reflection. Diffuse reflection makes a room sound livelier and makes our voices sound richer. We do not experience these reflections while we're speaking because the sound waves reach our ears at the same time the sound is being produced. But when we listen to a recording, we hear the original sound directly through the air and the reflected sound waves through the speaker. This causes a delay in what we hear, and that creates the impression that our voice sounds like it's underwater. Another phenomenon that contributes to this underwater effect is called the Haas effect. This is the name given to the precedence given to the direct sound over the indirect sound. In other words, our brains interpret the direct sound as being closer to us than the indirect sound. And since the direct sound hasn't been altered by reverberation or the room's acoustics, it seems louder and clearer. Because of the Haas effect, when we listen to a recording of ourselves speaking in a large space like a cathedral, we hear our voice seem to come from two different places. The direct sound appears to be coming from our mouth, and the indirect sound comes from all around us. It seems like there's a delay between the two sounds. This is why cathedrals are often called the testing ground for sound. If your voice doesn't sound good in a cathedral, it probably won't sound good anywhere. Now, in addition to the underwater effect, recordings of our voices also lack something called formant resonance. This is the amplification of certain frequencies of our voices based on the shape of our vocal tract. Our tongue, lips, teeth, and even the soft palate all act as filters that emphasize certain frequencies. These emphasized frequencies, or formants, contain information about the position and shape of our mouth as we speak. So when we're listening to a recording of ourselves speaking, we miss out on the rich, full sound produced by these resonances. So those are the three main reasons why our voices sound different when we hear them back. We're hearing them for the first time. The sound waves are traveling through a different pathway, through the air twice instead of just through our bones. This causes our voices to sound like they're coming from two different places, and our voices lack the richness and fullness of the formants. Now here are a couple of tips on how you can make your voice sound better on recordings. First, you need to find a space with minimum reverberation. A bathroom or bedroom with the door closed usually does the trick. If you want to record in a space with more reverb, try placing an absorbent material like blankets or egg cartons behind you and to the sides. You can even hang a blanket from the ceiling to create a bit of a cloud to absorb sound. Be sure not to place any of these absorbent materials in front of you. You want the sound of your voice to pass through them, not be absorbed by them. The next tip is to get as close as possible to the microphone without touching it. Most microphones are very sensitive and will pick up even the slightest touch or breath. Sounds produced by your body will compete with the sound produced by your voice, creating a muddy sound. If you're using a USB microphone like the Blue Yeti, try using a pop filter. Pop filters help prevent plosives like P and B from popping the diaphragm. They come in different shapes, but most are just a mesh screen that sits in front of the microphone. And finally, wear a headset while you're recording. Not only will this help you monitor your voice, but it'll also give you an indication of what your voice is doing in the space. This way, you can experiment with different positions and techniques to find what works best. Now, if you're looking for a simple way to improve your public speaking skills, check out this video where I talk about how to overcome the fear of public speaking. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more fun videos coming your way.